So, exams are coming up and you're feeling anxious. You're about to write and it's going to be very important. It will determine whether you pass or fail, and there's a lot riding on it. How do you get the maximum amount of time for your preparation for exams and tests to ensure that you're prepared and then you ultimately are efficient on the day? Hi, my name is Mshungane, Chartered Accountant and Learning Strategist. And in today's video, we'll be talking about how I used to prepare for exams and end of term tests in order for you to be able to get the tricks and tips to be able to be efficient as you prepare for these. In this video, will be quite comprehensive, identifying how to identify your weaknesses and then going on to see how do you actually prepare, track your progress, and ultimately get into the right frame of mind to be able to excel. We'll be looking at two scenarios. Scenario A involving someone who's prepared adequately and how they can maximize the benefits of having been prepared for the block. And secondly, we'll look at another scenario where you haven't prepared adequately and time is running out, and how you can actually start surviving in these tests and exams and still manage to pass and do well. Make sure you watch till the end so that you can get the maximum benefit of the video and understand how to deal with it, whether you're in scenario A or scenario B. Now let's go straight into it. The first step we're going to talk about is if you are in scenario A. Now scenario A assumes that you've prepared adequately during the block, you've applied the right study strategies, and now it's time to reap the benefits of all the hard work that you've done throughout the block. If you're not sure what these study strategies are or what these techniques are and you're new to this channel, make sure you check out our previous videos where we detail in depth on how you can actually effectively change your learning strategy so that you can be effective. So this part of the video assumes that you are now efficient, you've studied adequately, you're prepared, and now it's time to reap the benefits. How do you prepare for exams? The first step of the process that you want to be doing before you prepare for your exams and tests is firstly understanding what your weaknesses are. Now, understanding what your weaknesses are at the core of being able to be efficient and effective in preparing for tests and exams. Really, at the core is understanding the principle that what you don't know is actually where the risk is. Things that you know won't hurt you in exams, but rather what you don't know is where the issue is. Now the question is, how do I identify what I don't know? Now there are two main things that you can do in order to identify what you don't know. The first is what we call the internal reflection. Now in the internal reflection, what you're basically trying to do is take your entire syllabus and things that you've studied throughout the block for that specific subject, and for each learning area within the syllabus, you want to actually rank it from a scale of 1 to 10. Now, 1 would represent that I absolutely don't know what's happening in this subject, whereas 10 would represent that I'm extremely efficient, I know what's happening here, and if I were to write it tomorrow, I would pass it with my eyes closed. Now, it's very important as you rank each of these learning areas within each subject that you are as honest as possible, right? Now, honesty is really the best policy when it comes to this internal reflection. It will serve as a guide in order to guide your learning, and all you want to be doing is focusing the majority of your energy and time on learning areas where you're scoring below 5. Learning areas that are 5 and above, you want to spend less time on that. Right. Now, once you've done your internal reflection, you'll now have a good idea of where you are weak and where you're strong. It then becomes important to verify all of this work by doing an external reflection. Now, the best way to be able to do an external reflection is doing what we call an exploratory mock exam. Now, I discovered the concept of a mock exam in my second year when I was doing financial accounting. I realized that the lecturers in the department really liked this notion of giving you a past examination paper that covered last year's integrated topics, and then it was a basis for you to check your understanding before you actually started studying. Now, naturally, when I was still a poor student, I never really understood the importance of this. Why would I go and pitch up and do a mock exam when I wasn't prepared and actually I still needed time to study? As I reflect and transition from a poor student to a good student, I then realized there was a method to that madness. You see, when you do a mock exam, you really want to externally verify what you actually don't know. And this is why it became a game changer for me. So you should also start implementing mock exams. Now, how do they actually help you in doing an external reflection? Number one, it serves as an important completeness check that is free from bias. Now, as you do your internal reflection, naturally you may be biased towards doing your rating system and you may overlook certain weak areas. Now, in a mock exam, there's really nowhere to hide. You do the question and you get things wrong. When you get things wrong, it's a clear indication that you don't know what's happening for that topic. So that's why it's very important to do it. The second thing that it does is that it can actually build up your confidence. Now, as you do an objective mock exam under exam pressure, you'll then start realizing actually there are certain areas that I do know. As you do well in these areas, it builds up your confidence so that you know you can spend less time. And let me tell you, at the core of preparing for exams is confidence. The more you develop and build up your confidence, the more likely you are to be successful in the long run. The third thing that it helps you with is crucial exam technique. Now, exam technique is at the center of doing well in exams and tests. Understanding how to write under pressure, to score marks in an efficient way, looking for easy marks, and managing your time so that you're able to answer the majority, if not all of the question, becomes key. All of these skills are developed as you do the mock exam. And most importantly, after you do this entire exercise, you'll now have a very good guide in terms of what you know and what you don't know. So it's very important that you support your internal reflection with an independent external reflection through doing the exploratory mock exam. Now, you might be asking me, but Kanti, if mock exams are so powerful, they help you to determine your weaknesses independently and objectively, why do I still need to do an internal reflection? Well, the reason for internal reflection is because at the end of the day, mock exams only cover a specific point in time and only cover a subset of techniques and a subset of principles. Not all principles will likely be covered in a given test and exam. And that's why it's always important to do the internal reflection so that you get a full foundation of what's actually in the scope of what you need to study. So do both of them in order to optimize your ability to do well in tests and exams. Now, once you've identified your weaknesses, the next step of the process is to then create a plan to address those weaknesses head on. Now, ever heard of this saying that failing to plan is actually planning to fail? That's exactly what this means. You need to create an effective strategy and plan in order for you to be able to study efficiently. Now, you know from my previous videos that I advocate quite clearly and am quite biased towards creating a timetable, because timetables are giving you a good foundation and direction to know exactly the tasks that you need to do at given periods of time. So now, when you create your study timetable, what will be key is understanding how much time you have to actually study. The more time you have to study, the more you can start incorporating more revision in your timetable. Now, obviously for tests, you may have limited amount of time, a week, or even days, whereas for exams, you might have 2 weeks or 3 weeks. Regardless of the period you have, try to create a way in which you are able to maximize your efficient study strategies to address the weaknesses. Now, what are these efficient study strategies? The first of which is doing questions. Now, questions are by far the most effective way to be able to address weaknesses. Now, but you want to do questions after having addressed the weaknesses. So try to find ways to quickly look at the textbook and read and see where the weak areas are. Consult and engage your tutors, and as well as make sure that you understand the problem areas, and then spend the majority of your time redoing the practice questions under exam pressure in order to rectify those weaknesses. What also worked for me was creating short study intervals throughout the day that held me accountable and kept me refreshed in order to study. For example, I used to have 2-hour study blocks dedicated to each subject, and within that study block, I had intense shorter study periods of 25 minutes. And taking regular breaks in between kept me refreshed so that I could work optimally. Some pro tips as you also create your study plan to address these weaknesses: please make sure that you wake up and sleep at consistent time intervals. A mistake that many students believe is that by virtue of you writing, it means you have to sacrifice sleep. Now, this is a sure way for you to be unsuccessful. As you're tired and sluggish, you will be unable to retain information efficiently, and ultimately you won't do well. Another important thing is avoid studying in strange time periods. Let's face it, no one writes exams at 2 o'clock in the morning. Then why are you studying at this time period, right? Make sure that you study throughout the course of the day in recognized time period that match as far as possible the time in which you'll be writing your exams. You really want to be practicing how you're going to play. This means studying when you're actually going to be writing those tests and exams, and avoid studying in weird time periods. The next thing you want to do, especially when you have subjects that are difficult or you're struggling with, try to study these and try to plan your studying in such a way that you study these subjects when you're most productive. Now, productivity is quite relative and is not the same for everyone. For example, most students scientifically, including myself, are more productive towards the beginning of the day. This is where we are at our most energetic and our brains are working optimally. So try to study those difficult subjects or subjects you struggle with earlier on during the day if you're more productive. However, I do recognize that some of you may be more productive at night, and if that's the case, then do that. Study those subjects during those time periods in order to optimize your study sessions. The next thing that you want to be doing is that you really want to have a healthy diet and regularly exercise. Now, the last thing that you want to happen to you when you're studying is for you to fall sick or for you to have health problems. This could significantly delay and consume the limited time you have in order to prepare. So what I used to try to do as much as possible is to eat healthy food that are nutritious and also exercise. By doing this, I kept myself healthy and limited the amount of time that I was sick so that I could maximize the limited time I had in order to study efficiently. Now, once you've created your plan and you're now well on your way to being efficient and addressing those weaknesses, the third step of the process is to track your progress. Now, there's no good in creating a plan and not having a way to be able to judge whether you're on the right track. For me, tracking your progress was very important in being able to be effective on the exam day. Now, how do I track my progress? I used to have 3 important milestones that I used throughout the exam study period that guided how I was studying and learning. The 3 milestones was 1, the exploratory mock exam, the second one was the consolidation exam, and the third was the polishing exam. Now, we've already discussed the exploratory exam and why it was important as part of the external reflection to be able to identify your weaknesses so that you were able to address them and create an effective study plan to deal with them. Now, once you were efficient and are able to address those weaknesses, naturally you'd be doing the practice questions and making sure that you practice the questions that are related to that weak area. You'd be consulting, engaging, looking at your materials, watching videos, using all alternative materials and the services of tutors in order to address those weaknesses. Now, once you've addressed those weaknesses, it's very important to do another exam that I call the consolidation exam to check that you've actually addressed and are now growing and progressing. And that's the whole point of the consolidation exam. I used to write it, let's say, a week before I actually write the real test, if it was a test. If it was an exam, at least 2 weeks before I wrote that exam, I would do a consolidation exam. And really, the consolidation exam was designed to make sure that I'm at the very least growing. So where a topic initially I was scoring the 20% in the exploratory exam, I now want to see progress I'm now getting 60s and 70%, showing that I'm actually growing. The consolidation exam is also important to identify further weaknesses. Maybe there are new areas that you are now identifying you're struggling with. You then have an opportunity to address them before the actual exam or test commences. All of these are important tools. And again, practicing that exam condition and exam technique, and equally building up your confidence again, because as you tick off weak areas and they move from a scale of 3 out of 10 to now 7 out of 10, you're building the necessary confidence required in order to do well in the exam. Once you've done the consolidation exam, then naturally again you'll focus on the weak areas that are identified, and then go and do the last, what I call the polishing exam. Now the polishing exam was typically for me no later than 2 days before I wrote. The reason why I wanted it to be as early or as close as possible to when I actually write is that it was really your dress rehearsals. Look at how most of the time, for example, in acting and other professions, you really want that practice or final dress rehearsal where you're actually trying to see that and build that confidence and exam technique to check that you're ready to write the real thing. And that is actually what the purpose of the polishing exam was. It was for me to build up my confidence, to know that I'm ready to write the real exam, to practice the exam technique so that I could score marks quickly under time pressure, and also just polish everything up so that I would be ready to write on the day. Now, I didn't want the polishing exam to be a day before I wrote, because in the event that I got things wrong, I wouldn't have enough time to rectify the mistakes. So that would have deteriorated or compromised my confidence and wouldn't have been great heading into a test or exam. And at the same time, I didn't want it to be too far away from doing the right for the exam, because now I can't benefit from that confidence that I'm building up. So about 2 days before you write was the ideal time for me to do the last polishing exam. Now, once I had done the polishing exam and I was now well prepared, the next step of this was creating the right mindset in order to do well. Now in sports, we've got the concept that we call big match temperament. Now, big match temperament is this notion that sports athletes abide by that says that you want to perform optimally on the day of the actual event. It's creating the right mindset to perform optimally and give of your best. Now, this is very important because you can be as prepared as you want to be and really have the right tools, but if on the day you fail to pitch up and give of your best, all of this will be redundant. Now, you might be asking me, but Kanti, how do I then create the right mindset and have this BMT to be able to do well on the day of the exam? Now, there are various techniques and tools that I used to use, but the most important one for me was spiritual retreats. Now, spiritual retreats were very important for me because it was an effective way to firstly escape, right? When you escape the process of actually going over all the tests and exams and take a short break, it's a good way to refresh the mind so that you come back energetic. But two, it also focuses you. Having faith and believing in something is very important to reinforce that you can do it, you do have the ability, so that when you come back with the right frame of mind in order to be successful. Another key tool that you can use is leveraging your family and your own personal circumstances. You and you alone understand why you want to study this course. You understand why you enrolled, and you understand what motivates you. Your family and your family background can be good reminders of why you wanted to study. All of this can fuel your motivation in order to perform optimally. Engaging mentors and people who've passed before is also key, because they can give you tips and tricks in order to be able to arrive and have the right mindset to tackle the exam and do well. All of these tips are very important to get yourself in the right frame of mind in order to perform optimally on the day of the exam. Now, hopefully now you have a better understanding of how you can perform at your best in preparing for exams and tests. But the next question becomes, What happens if I didn't prepare and now I'm in scenario B? B involves a student who didn't study, right? You failed to do the right thing during the block, and now time is catching up with you. Exams are fast approaching. What do I do in order to survive and still do well with limited time and limited preparation? Now, there are two key things that you need to look out for if you want to do well, if you're this type of student. It's number one, identifying high yielding or high mark scoring activities or topics. And secondly, finding the easiest ways in order to learn these high mark earning activities. Now, high mark earning activities can be identified by doing past examination papers. As you scroll through the past examination papers, you'll be able to identify patterns and trends of how past exams used to look like. As you review these past exams, carefully monitor and see where are the topics where the majority of the marks are being scored that get examined on a recurring basis every year. Focus your energy on these topics and make sure that you master them to the best of your ability prior to you going to write the exams. Now, as you identify these high mark earning and high yield activities and topics, the next step is, how do I learn this in the quickest amount of time so that I can maximize the limited time I have? The best way you can do this is using alternative learning strategies that allow you to use multiple senses in order to be efficient. The best of these is watching videos. Now, what's nice about watching videos is usually that the person who, if done correctly, will be able to summarize the topic nicely for you so that you can cut all the energy and time that would have been required in reading a textbook and spending hours. A short 30-minute video summarizing the topic can be an effective way as a starting point before you start practicing your tests and exams. So that's a good starting point. Watch videos and then go and practice exams and tests, examining yourself on that topic to make sure that you master it. Another thing is actually going to the textbook and looking for summaries at the end of the chapters. Now, summaries tend to identify the key learning areas that are important to you for that topic. As you read through the summary page, it will give you a good guide in terms of what the gist is of this topic and what's important, and then use that summary as a basis and do the practice tutorials at the back of your textbook or in your post-examination test in order again to reinforce the principles and learn efficiently. Another area that you can use that's often underutilized by students is the services of tutors. Tutors have a wide variety of experience in the topic, and they normally are able to summarize topics easily and find ways that are more efficient to relay the information. So try to find ways to engage tutors on campus to summarize topics quickly for you. They could do a summary for 30 minutes. Then you take that summary as a basis again to do your practice questions and tutorials. If you cannot find the services of the tutors on campus, you may have to contract external tutors. Be willing to pay these tutors as long as you can be able to get the information quickly so that you can have more time to do the practice questions and examine yourself. Another tool is to actually go and consult regularly. By consulting and asking your lecturers questions, they are human as well. They may be able to give you hints or areas of focus that you can latch onto in order to be able to be efficient with the limited time you have. Now, this brings us to the end of the video. Hopefully now you're in a better position to understand how to prepare for exams and tests. Whether you're in scenario A or scenario B, the tools that we've covered today will be instrumental in ensuring that you perform optimally in your exams and tests. Now, let's chat in the comment section. How did you enjoy this video? Are there any topic areas that we didn't cover, or perhaps insightful things that you identified in this video that are worth elaborating on? Let's continue this conversation. Now, make sure that you hit the thumbs up and make sure that you like the video, share and comment so that we can spread the message and help as many people as possible with this video. Now, until we meet again, Remember, I believe in you. All the best.